This is Podcast Portugal with Justin West. I'd like to introduce my next guest. I'm very excited for this one. His name is Tim Vieira. He is a Portuguese entrepreneur and investor, renowned for his dynamic career across various industries. Born on July 18, 1975, in Johannesburg, South Africa, to Portuguese parents, he embarked on his entrepreneurial journey early, establishing one of South Africa's first independent microbreweries in 1993. In 2001, Tim moved to Angola, where he co-founded Special Edition Holding, a leading media group that expanded its original operations to Mozambique and Ghana. His prominence in Portugal surged in 2015, following his role as an investor on the inaugural season of Shark Tank Portugal. Currently, Tim serves as the CEO of Brave Generation Academy, an innovative educational institution offering a hybrid learning model accredited by Cambridge, catering to learners aged between 11 and 19. In April 2024, Mr. Vieira announced his candidacy for the 2026 Portuguese presidential election, reflecting his commitment to public service. Beyond his professional endeavors, Tim is an avid sport enthusiast and an honorary legend of South African rugby. I'd like to take this opportunity to leave a slightly more personal note for me, which is not very usual. Dedicate this episode to my father. My father passed away just recently, and we were very close. Dad played rugby for England. He was capped 8 times. He was also a British Lion, and he toured South Africa in 1968. Unfortunately, losing 3 times to South African team and drawing once. My dad was an educationalist, so I feel that many of Tim's values my father would have shared, and it is for this reason that I dedicate this episode to you, Dad. Thank you for everything. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. I'd like to extend an extremely warm welcome to Tim Vieira. There are so many things, Tim, that I want to talk to you about. You've been involved with so many things, such a rich history and a diverse set of experiences. I'm not sure we can cover everything in this episode. However, what I really want to talk to you about and make sure we cover for our listeners is Brave Generation Academy, Portuguese entrepreneurship, your 2026 Portuguese presidential candidacy, rugby, and of course, classic cars. Tim.
Awesome.
What inspired the creation of Brave Generation Academy, and how does it differ from traditional education models?
Okay, Justin, really glad to be on Podcast Portugal.
Thank you.
It was already interesting just chatting to you a little bit before this, seeing that you're there in the LNTs, one of my favorite areas. So wonderful. And then you got a boy that's 5 years old that's also really looking for alternatives in education. And as I said to you just before this, is that there's, the norm nowadays is learners are looking for something different. And that's exactly what I wanted for my own children when I started Brave Generation Academy. So Brave Generation Academy, after doing this trip around the world with my family, I came back and it just didn't feel right putting them back in a traditional school and telling them, listen, sit there, behave for 8 hours a day. Don't think for yourself. Don't be too curious, and actually don't learn all the skills you need to for today's world, which is really communicating, be open-minded, be curious, and all those kinds of things. So once you get to the age of high school, I noticed that most learners weren't that happy at high school. They didn't understand why they were going to school. When you ask them, why do you go to school? They weren't sure about how to answer that. And I just started to think there's got to be a better way of doing schooling that's more flexible, more personalized, and more relevant for today's world. And that's how BGA, Brave Generation Academy, came about. So I used my two boys as guinea pigs. I took them both out of the traditional system. They were actually both okay in the traditional system. One was thrived and the other one just could do it anyway, so it wasn't too bad. But I just thought, there had to really be a better way of doing it. So when I started, I didn't actually understand exactly how Brave Generation would get going and where it would be today. But I started by saying, look, we've got technology. Let's use technology and let's use humans and get the best out of humans and the best of technology, mix it up. And that's how we'll run the school. And that's what we did. We started that the learners, my sons could do MOOCs, massive online open courses, and they could do those while they were doing what they really loved doing, which was, playing rugby, surfing, golf, music, and then they would fit those courses in. Obviously, after 2-3 months, I started to select a curriculum. We came up with a British curriculum because it's just so well accepted all over the world. But we decided that we would do it in the most flexible way. And that's where we again broke up the teacher into two roles. We took the teacher, we called it the learning coach in the hub, which is in person in the hub that the learners go to. And they're there to inspire, motivate, connect them to the community, and at the same time, just make sure that they're doing their online work. And then we would have the course managers, which are the academic side of the teacher, and they would prepare everything, put it into 25-minute lessons where you read, you watch, you do a quiz, get 85%, go to your next lesson. And by doing those two things, learners started to take control, become accountable, responsible for their own part. Mm-hmm. And that's how the whole system started to move forward. We sort of like mixed the best of technology, the best of offline, put those together, broke teachers into two, let the teachers, have a lot of time, the learning coaches with the learners, not have to worry about bureaucracies and paperwork and grading and all those kind of things, lesson preparations. No, they were there for the learners. And then, little things like we mixed the ages in the hub. So, you go from 12 to 19 all in the same hub. We took away holidays, like who needs holidays? You can go on holiday whenever you need it. Or if you, need to go in October, why are you forced to go in July? Yeah. So we took that away. We also made it that you would be able to write your exams 2 to 3 times a year instead of that once a year. So that if you do fail, you learn from it and you rewrite it. Not a problem. So that removed anxiety from the learners. And then, good things like you can hub hop. So you can go to one hub, you can go to another hub. Today we have 61 hubs in 9 countries. So, you're able to actually also experience by traveling, meeting new people. And that's also a great.
So the kids can sort of go between different hubs all over the world. Is that
100%, 100%? And we get a lot of them doing that, and some of them not all over the world, but they go to different hubs in the same country, but they're meeting new people, new friends, etc. And when they get to those hubs, they come across people that are maybe surfers or tennis players, or they've got other skills, or they're good at maths or science, and again they drink from that.
And
yeah.
Oh, Tim, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I come from a family of educationalists. My father was a university lecturer. My mum was a teacher. My sister is currently a teacher in the UK in Canford School. I was a teacher in Saudi Arabia at a British international school, and I taught PE and outdoor education. And I actually left. I couldn't really handle. For me, I didn't really have the most amazing experiences in school. I went to a boarding school in the UK. And then I went to Millfield School, which was excellent school. But the school before that, I struggled a little bit with. And I felt even teaching, it brought all those nightmares back for me. I found it very strange how the kids were, the kids weren't almost respected, and there was a vast majority of the kids which didn't seem to fit in that particular box. And, similar experiences coming to Portugal. We live in the Alentejo, and I was searching around to give my give my team a slightly different educational option, because I really think when kids are going into school and they're in a standard system, when you leave that standard system, you're competing for the same jobs with everybody that's been taught the same thing in the same way.
Exactly.
And I think, well, I wanted to give my kid that sort of competitive edge, you know.
Yeah.
So
No.
fascinating.
No, that's exactly what we believe. We believe that, you should try and work towards finding passion that the learner has, or, that they can grow with. And then, they can do the academics along. If a learner loves horses, they can do horses and school. It's not like
Mhm.
school and try fit in your horses. And at the same time, we also started to realize that more and more parents and learners are coming and saying, "Oh, we got a problem with our child, or we got a problem with school, and my kid's got a problem. My kid's got this problem. He's got that problem." And we started to understand that it's not the kids that have the problem, but it's the system that's the problem. But no one works on the system. We all just work on the kid. So we keep trying to fit the kid into this system that's outdated. As you said, it's not even preparing us for today's work. In today's life, we don't need to answer questions. We need to know how to ask questions because the answers are all around us. So
And
this
simulate
kind of stuff,
response, you know.
yeah. So these kind of things are what we need to look at. And then also the other thing is we started to focus on the experts in education, which are really the learners. Instead of us listening to all these experts and it's this and that and that, we just started to listen to the learners, and we actually understood that they just want to be able to take control, follow a path that they start to believe in. And once they start to do that, they're actually very powerful. They actually get things done. And then, we set up things that help them do that. So we've got apps that they can actually use that show them at what speed they're going, when will they finish, every time they finish a lesson, how that affects their timeline. Is that making them go a bit quicker? When will they be ready to write in an exam? All these kinds of things. And at the same time, their parents can see it and their learning coach sees it. So there's accountability. And I think that's what's missing in today's education. It's,
Mm.
everybody's just made to be the same, and we're not the same. And then when we leave high school, we told that the advantage is to be different. But then, for about 6 years, we've been beating them to be the same. So
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
I mean,
What's
it's
the
that
thing?
skill set as well, that sort of discipline, and you need to be motivated. And I think in the future, the job roles as well, it's not going to be a case of, oh, I have to be at work at 9, I need to get out of bed, and you follow that sort of order. It's going to be like you motivate yourself to be into something, and I think that's a kind of learning that we will all benefit from, I think.
Yeah, no, I think, we've got all the tools nowadays to be able humans to be their best humans possible. If
Mm.
they need to sleep a little bit longer because they're young and they're still developing, let them sleep a little bit longer. We put all this pressure on kids. They've got to do all these sports and this and that, and then wake up at 5 and go back to swimming lessons. And well, maybe it's more important that they sleep until 7 and then go do the swimming. So
Mhm.
those are the things that we're able to do by using this flexible system and so on. And you see the performance grow. You see them happier. And I think all parents, that's what they
Mhm.
ultimately want, is happier learners, happier kids, not feeling like there's always something missing in their kids or being told that there's a problem.
Having to try to motivate them to be interested in things. I think that's one of my
Exactly.
biggest fears,
Yeah, yeah.
is if my child, he's not interested in stuff, and I'm like, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And, I love it for him to be like, "Oh, really, I learned this today, and this was fascinating, and da 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 da," you know? I think it's so
No,
important just for life in general.
no, and that's the thing. If you tell them, listen, you're going to have to do some boring stuff, but once
Mm,
you've done the boring stuff, you've got freedom to do the stuff you really love. They're okay with that. Okay, let's get the boring stuff out the way, and then let me have time to do the stuff that's good. But at school, everybody goes at the same speed. If you need to go faster, you can't. If you need to go a bit slower to understand things, you can't. And then we start having this imbalance, where traditional school maybe works for 50% of kids, but it doesn't work for another 50%, which is a big number. So in this way, it works actually for anyone who wants to go fast. They can go as fast as they want. Anyone who needs to go a little bit slower to get better grades, great, you can go slower. And for those who really need this super flexible system because they play tennis, they travel, they do whatever they need to do, well, again, it works. So it's a win-win which
Yeah,
is
I
a
mean,
great way to do school.
I definitely I feel for you, and I feel for some of the teachers as well when they have such a broad. When you have kids in your class, which probably need to have a little bit more, they can learn a bit faster, and there's some that are learning at a different pace. As a teacher, your workload is increased because you're having to write several different lesson plans to attribute to all of these different kids, and a lot of the attention sometimes has to go one place or another place, and that causes quite a bit of pressure on the teachers, and sometimes maybe some of the kids which are performing very very fast or very highly they feel a little bit less motivated because they're not given that extra bit of attention or that taken that little bit further.
Yeah.
So I think your system, it's
No,
much
and
beneficial even from a teaching perspective.
Justin, if everything was working well, like you would have happy teachers, you'd have happy learners, you'd have happy parents. But at the moment, you don't have happy parents, you don't have happy teachers, and most of all, you don't have happy learners.
Yeah,
And with teachers, you don't have teachers for all the subjects anymore. You don't have teachers that are motivated anymore because they spend their time not working with their passion, which is the learners. They spend their time doing everything but being with the learners.
admin.
And doing something like this, exactly, and doing something like this, where you take away that bureaucracy, that admin, and all these reports, etc., and lesson planning and grading, when you take that away, teachers are actually able to do what they always thought they would be able to do, which is impact young people's lives and be there for them and show them values and ethics and all these great things. That's what we're able to do with the system, and I think that's the superpower of BGA is that we let teachers become, the teachers they want to be. We let learners become the learners they want to be, and ultimately the humans and the paths they want. And parents, in a way, start to understand the system because they get day-to-day reporting. They can actually see the progress of their kids. They don't have to wait for exams. They don't have to stress about that. So all this took time because once we set it up, it wasn't like automatic. We couldn't copy paste. There wasn't a BGA for dummies. But
Mm.
nowadays, we actually look at it and we grow in because we're actually putting BGAs into schools. So schools are our fastest growing a model. We're actually able to go to a school and say, listen, we'll put a BGA in your school. The learners that want the BGA model are now in your school. They go into to BGA. They can still get the benefits of school, but they get the benefits of doing their academic in this, way that just makes common sense, like on how to do school. And that's what's really working out. So we're super excited by actually partnering with schools and working towards the future of a new school. But the school doesn't have to change everything, and it starts to change slowly, but they're starting to change, which is great.
That's amazing. I mean, my team has 6 years, I think, until he can
Yeah.
apply for a BGA. So, but how would that look? For example, we live in the middle of the Alentejo. At the moment, he's got quite a drive to school.
Yeah.
And when he turns 11, how would we approach BGA? How would we get him involved? And what would it look like for also maintenance of his time? Because obviously, both Rita and I, we work full time.
Yeah.
Uh, and, that mean that my team would be at home doing some studying quite a lot of the time, or how does it sort of look?
Yeah, so what we try to do is we try not to have BGA remote, which is the online side of it. So if we do get Martin onto an online, we try to do it for a shortest period possible by then having a hub going up close to him. Okay, so what we do is we try to get a hub either into a school, a hub into a location that we identify, maybe another 8 parents at one a hub, and then we'll set up a standalone hub or we'll go into a school hub. Okay. And by doing that, we won't routine with other learners because he will have skills that he'll pass on to other people and the others will pass on to him. So it's very, very important. So when you look at it, we've got hubs in our field, in Pundong, in places that maybe would never have one of these schools, but they're able to have these hubs. Okay, so we do count on parents to say, okay, yeah, we've got 8 kids, come here, and then we do
It
that.
doesn't need to be particular age group. It can be kids from like some
Yeah,
11,
so we
15.
look at like 11 and up. So it really starts to work 12, 13, 14. That's when, BJ really works for. So we work from like the high school side of it. We also now launching this year the Portuguese curriculum. So we'll have the Portuguese curriculum. And what's nice about this is we then have the Portuguese curriculum, we've got the English curriculum, we've got the US curriculum, and we've got the UP pathway, which is our unique pathway, which is where you can start university at 16. And each kid can be doing what they choose. So we could have 3 kids doing the Portuguese, 3 kids doing the British, 1 doing the American, and 2 doing UP. Not a problem at all. But they're all in the same hub, and they're all cooperate. Not competing, but they're actually cooperating and they're helping each other and being there for each other. And that's what's also very interesting about our model, is that it's so flexible that we look at the learner and we say, what do you want? Where are you going? Oh no, I'm looking at going to the US for a scholarship. Okay, well, we put you on that path. Oh no, I know I want to be a business degree. Okay, well, we'll put you on that path. No, I want my Portuguese because I want to go study here in a Portuguese university and I need Portuguese curriculum. Okay, well, then we do that. So that's also what's really nice about our system. And then we're not short of any teachers because everything's on the platform. You have the learning coach there, and we've got the backup, which is the course managers that, look after you. If you've got a question that, your learning coach or yourself or the platform is not answering, you go through and you have your meetings with the course manager. So it works like that, and it works from the age of, we always say 12 and up. So, sometimes we got kids who join us at 11, but normally at around 12 years old, you will join at lower secondary, and there you go. So, yeah, and the nice thing about it is that, the earlier you join us, the earlier you start to know about understanding responsibility and accountability and how you do your work, because you can actually see it. And that's what's amazing. So when a learner actually understands why he's doing something and why he's doing a curriculum and where he is in that curriculum and where he could be in a month if he does more work or less work. And that's when they start to really take charge and are empowered to follow their path.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, this whole kind of idea is going to also prepare. One of my big sort of ideas, I think, in politics and in education, I think education is such a long-term investment. And I think sometimes in politics, it gets overlooked. We're on 4-year cycles. And I think like who, e- e- education is like an 18-year investment and probably even more if you include university. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting sort of thing for you to possibly, we're talking about your presidential candidacy in 2026, and I think the fact that you come from this, Brave Generation Academy concept, and you're also going to run into politics.
Yeah.
It's really positive for me, and I think
Yeah.
also the next really important thing I believe is entrepreneurship. Particularly for me as an outsider of Portugal initially, um, I felt like I had some skills and to bring and to set up my own business. And in Portugal, it's actually pretty easy to set up a business. I found it quite easy.
Yeah.
Um, and you participated in a very interesting show. I love Dragon's Den in the UK. It's one of my family's favorite, and Shark Tank Portugal is the equivalent. Um, What's your perspective on Portuguese entrepreneurship, and how is that related to Shark Tank?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's easy to set up a company. Yeah, it's not one of the, when I look at it, and because I'm operating all over the world at the moment, I look at it and I see there's no utopia in how running businesses and and just doing business. But I do see in Portugal, it's not the worst, but it could be a lot better.
Mhm.
Okay, I think at the moment we need more entrepreneurs than ever in all countries, not just Portugal, but in Portugal we really do. We need entrepreneurs. We need people that will believe that they can follow their dreams, they can build something, they can be successful. And, because we've got a very low average salary. So that's not going to be what keeps people here or keeps talented people here, let's say it, and motivated people here. So the one thing that could keep them is obviously letting them have their own businesses and flourishing. the thing is, once you open your business, that's when sometimes the difficulties start. From day one, you've got costs, and sometimes the business takes a while to start producing income. But that doesn't matter because you start with costs, your accounting, a whole bunch of costs all the time. You pay your EVA before you receive it. It's little things like that are really tough on these young entrepreneurs. So for many of them, that starts to be a difficulty immediately. Raising capital isn't easy here in Portugal. It's still very, very tough. Then you also got a lot of bureaucracy in decisions coming through. Everything might look good on paper, but then when in reality, when you're waiting for licenses or you're waiting for something, it might take a lot longer than you thought, and you've got to carry that cash flow, and that kills you as well. And then you've got like more obstacles sometimes than opportunities, because again, it's like, yes, you can do this, but you can't really do this, and then it's this and it's that, and then you hit your head on this problem and that problem. So a lot of our youngsters, and if you look at the numbers, around 67% actually leaving the country that are qualified,
Really?
because they don't actually see how they're going to follow their dreams here, or how they're going to be successful. And that's a pity. That's a real pity, because not all of them are just looking for better salaries. A lot of them are looking at building something, but they don't see the possibilities here, or they try and then they just give up because they see it's a lot tougher, and it's not a market that open to failure. You don't want to fail in Portugal because you do get branded. It's a small place, etc. And they don't see you as an entrepreneur. They see you first as a failure, and then, oh, but yes, he was entrepreneurial as well. But we do need entrepreneurs here more than ever, because most of Europe now, governments, the only way they see their income increasing is by increasing taxes. So we need an economy that's growing. So we need these entrepreneurs to grow things. 80% of our salaries are paid by small and medium sized companies, our taxes as well. I think it's about 85% of our taxes. So we need these little companies, and then we need to have conditions that these small companies become medium and medium become bigger.
Mm.
We also need to tell our entrepreneurs it's okay to fail. We need to tell our entrepreneurs to use Portugal as a base, but think globally. I think that's also very, very important, because it's a great place to live, as I'm sure you know, Justin.
Yeah,
It's a great
sure.
place. There is talent out here. There is all this, but we've got to also allow entrepreneurs to pay better wages. And there, if we pay 2,400 euro salary, which is 1,000 more than the average, it costs the company 4,200, and the worker takes out 1,820. So from 1,820 to the cost to company of 4,200, all that money is gone in taxes. So we need to reduce that and let our workers get more of that money. The people that are risking get more of that money.
Mm.
So there's a few changes we need, but in the way this is working, it's still very, very much about how much money needs to come in, but not looking at the big picture of, if we grow the economy, more money will come in. And then with regards to the politics again, it's how do we spend that money? We keep spending it in the wrong way. In our education, we've got 300,000 learners that don't have teachers for all subjects. Healthcare, we've got a record number of people that have had to go into private healthcare, about 1.7 million. So neither is working. Our private healthcare is, I mean, our public healthcare is not working. Our public education is not working. Our public transport's not working. So all these kinds of things that, although it's not the worst in the world, it's on the downtrend, and that's where we've got to stop it. And we've got to say, okay, well, let's start investing better then into our health and into our education and into our public transport. How do we do it better? We also need, if you set up a company and God forbid you do get into a problem and it's a legal problem, well, justice doesn't work. You can go on for years and years and years and you don't get any resolve there. And how do you invest in countries where the resolve in justice doesn't work? So we need a better justice system. We also need a government that is more reliable and more um, uh, uh, basically a lot more to their word, because Today you got golden visas, and you don't have golden visas, then you got NHRs, and you don't have NHRs. You're looking at our immigrants that come back to retire in Portugal now are getting taxed more again. So it makes it difficult for people to plan their futures and to feel like, okay, this is solid and stable. So there's a lot of work to do there, but it can be done if there's a vision and if political parties put the country first instead of political interest first. And that's where it's been difficult. We've got the government now again going through a bit of a tough time. It might collapse again. Who knows? It's going to go into voting again on confidence. But for an entrepreneur, we're not even too worried about is government collapsing or not. We want to know how stable things are in terms of the laws, the legislation. And at the moment, all we do is we get more regulation, more legislation, but it keeps changing and it keeps getting tougher against us. So it's a great country, or Europe is starting to look good if you just want to get a subsidy. But if you do want to produce and build things, it's getting tougher. So that's a little bit where I see Portugal at the moment. But as I say, there's no utopia. There's problems all over the world, but we can't use that as an excuse. We need to become more competitive. We need to ensure that money comes in here. We don't just live off tourism. We need innovation. We need people who believe that they can build things here that become global. We've had 7 unicorns. 6 of them have been they're based outside. We've got a PSE 20 with 18 companies, 17 of which are based outside this country in terms of where they registered. It's tough. We've got to start making some real decisions and not argue about a 1% EFC or something like that. But we need to have a plan and a vision of where we're going to go and how we're going to support these entrepreneurs that in the end, they support the economy. It's not the government that has money. They get the money from the entrepreneurs, from the companies, from those who work. So we
Creating
need
things and creating services and products.
support. Exactly.
We hope that you do become president. No, I kind of represent a lot of the listeners here, are English speakers, and I think on residency visas in Portugal, before we apply for citizenship, I think there's about 1 million of us here in Portugal. A large majority of those, I admit, are Brazilian speakers. But how can we get involved with politics here? How can we help Tim Vieira become president in 2026? Because as far as I understand, we can't vote in national elections, and a lot of us probably are here to create business and are entrepreneurs and want to bring ideas from living abroad. And how can we get more involved in?
Yeah, we do have residents that are starting to get their passports, and obviously there you do get the right to vote. So you got the same right as every other Portuguese. So over there, that's the easiest. Vote for me, vote for me there. For those that have started businesses and maybe can't vote, aren't there yet, well, tell your employees, tell your people, look, there's this guy, have you heard of him? Stuff like that, because I've got a following in the young entrepreneurs, but not so much in the older people, and and it's not easy because I'm an independent. I'm not running with party support and so on. So I do need people to pass on word of mouth, etc. From my side, as an immigrant myself, when I was outside and living in South Africa, I understand the difficulties of people, as immigrants or that have come and are residents in a different country. And for me, I value that a lot, because if you actually do look at mostly the people that are immigrants and residents in different countries, they actually produce a lot. They produce more than what they take. And that's amazing. So for me, I'm always going to be a voice for that. And especially a voice for people that are like-minded, people that respect women, people that have the same kind of cultures, etc. 100%. I think at the moment the world is even competing for those kind of immigrants and those kinds of residents into a country. So again, as president, I'll be fighting not to change rules constantly about things like that, and about ensuring that anyone who contributes to this country is part of this country and doesn't ever have to fear that they excluded or not part of the decisions. So for me, that's important. I also understand that we've got to have good policies, yeah, because we've got a big immigrant population ourselves. About 3 million Portuguese are outside, and many of them are in the UK working. And there's nurses, and there's doctors now, and teachers. There's a whole bunch of things. So
You
I
want to
want
attract
to,
them back, you know.
yeah, I want to attract them back, and I want to make sure that we treat UK people well, yeah, so they treated well there, because it is about nowadays living by principle and being an example. And I think we forget that a little bit. We're in a weird like cycle of politics where it's almost like just look after yourself. But we need to be an example and show others, how we do things here, so they can do the same for our people everywhere else. Because 3 million Portuguese outside Portugal, that's 3 million people representing Portugal and are Portugal, even though they're not in our borders. So that's also important. So that's the kind of stuff I want to promote. I want to obviously promote better integration. Now, the education side of it, for sure. That's one of the big motivations why I've gone for president, because I feel like we're too comfortable doing the wrong thing in education. Like, there's no pressure to change. There's no pressure to do things better, but we have to, because that's the future of our country. That's the future of our people. So it's those motivations that have me running, for 2026, when I'm not a politician. As I said, I'm independent. I don't actually identify with any party. I want to work with the different parties, take the best ideas that they've got, because in the end, about 85% of these ideas of all parties are the same, but they concentrate on 10% of their differences, so nothing gets done. And I think that's a bit sad. So as president, I don't have executive powers in Portugal, but you do. You've got powers of mindset. You've got powers of motivating and bringing things to the forefront, opening minds, having a new mindset. You've got powers of maybe bringing a referendum when you're not sure that what is being done by Parliament is representative of what the Portuguese want. So there's work to be done, and I was always thinking somebody should do it, but then somebody is maybe and so that's where I've got to. Yeah.
How long is the presidential term?
5 years, and normally a president runs 2 terms. They normally get 5 years, and then they normally win the second round. That it's been the way it happens. But actually, on my side, I really just want to do the 5 years, push that through, and then hopefully be able to bring new people into politics, talented people into politics, and take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, onto a slightly different subject now. Tim, I'm actually going to dedicate this podcast to my father, Brian West. He recently passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he was 1968. He was in the British Lions tour of South Africa, and he had 8 caps for England.
Wow.
I personally didn't reach the same kind of height as he did in rugby, but I captained Jeddah Rugby Club in Saudi Arabia, and I was actually director of Saudi rugby development for a short period of time. And like, as someone who values leadership and entrepreneurship, I've always believed that rugby has such a great great character, and is a really strong metaphor for business and for team building and for getting key team players within an organization. What lessons do you think from the sport apply to the business world?
Yeah. So
Indeed,
yeah,
politics.
firstly, condolence on your dad, but it sounds
Yeah.
like an amazing man and someone I would have loved to have a few beers with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think rugby is an incredible sport. There's a space for everybody on the rugby field. If you're big, small, fast, slow, tall, short, there's a position for you. And it's a little bit like life, and a little bit like in business. You need your HR, you need your marketing, you need your sales, you need your regulators, you need a whole bunch of stuff. And that's the same on the rugby field. And then you're really just as good as the team. If you've got a good team, you're going to have good results. If you've got good spirit and people know your DNA and they believe, they've got a vision and they know what game plan to play, awesome, you're going to get good results. And that's very much like a company. A company, it needs a good captain. It needs someone who's showing the vision. You need to train. You need to get up when you fail. There's a lot of similarities. And then the mindset is very much about team and about pushing forward, and about defense when you need to defense, making tough decisions when you need to make tough decisions, um, substituting people when they get hurt, and looking after them and letting them take some time to come back stronger. So it's very much the way I do business is the way I see rugby, and so on. So it's not really for prima donnas. It's you all have a place to play. So rugby has been quite important in my life, and also the people involved in rugby are normally very strong, uh, value based. They normally quite, um, they're good mentors. They're good. They've got good common sense. So
There's a nice modesty as
I've just
well.
always enjoyed that. And it doesn't matter where you play rugby, or when you play rugby. There's like a fraternity, and even when you play rugby and the game's over, the experience is not over, because then you still get together, you have a drink, you talk, you network, and I just love that. So yeah, that's what puts me involved with Legends Rugby and all those legends that are out there, and all those people that have contributed and made us happy. Like, how do we give back to them, and how do we still learn from them? And that's, yeah, that's the way I've just brought rugby into my life and into my kids' life. They both play rugby. One's
Okay.
playing rugby now at Berkeley in the US. The other
Wow.
one's playing rugby at the moment in Durban at DHS, where we have a BGA.
What
So
positions do they play?
sorry.
What positions do they play?
So one's the hooker
Yeah,
and the other one's a
tough
lock.
position.
So
Oh, both
yeah,
tough positions.
both forwards. They're not pretty
Oh.
ones.
Yeah, I mean these days the forwards as well. Though I mean there's absolutely there's almost no differentiation in the top teams, like between forwards and backs, and they all can interplay with such a great amount of skill.
No, it's amazing rugby at the moment, and when you see even Portugal, you see
Yeah,
what Portugal works with, the limited resources we have, and yet we've got amazing players that have come through, and when we, coaches use their strengths like we did at the World Cup, and although we couldn't compete in rucks and mauls and all that up front, we were, passing the ball around, doing the unexpected, etc.
mm,
And that's what's beautiful about rugby, is that, and sort of Portugal became everybody's second favorite team,
yeah, yeah.
which was beautiful.
My mom's favorite team.
You see, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was listening to an interview once with Richie McCaw from the All Blacks, and he was talking about that really famous team that they had, and he said actually, if you took it back to the beginnings of this team, the very sort of the grassroots, is they actually lost a lot, and
Yeah, yeah.
they actually learned more from their losing, and they learned a lot from how to deal with pressure, um, from those losses, which is, I think, is also quite a cool metaphor for
No,
life.
in life we do. We learn more from the losses and the failures than we do from when everything goes well, because we just think we're amazing when things go well. But when you fail, when you lose, you've got to rethink, you've got to work at getting stronger. So you need those losses to get stronger and to build character. So it is a bit of life as well.
How do you keep the motivation from failure? When you, how do you think it's the best way to kind of move forward? If you've had a few businesses which you've struggled with, or maybe it's not the great idea, or maybe you haven't had the right team, how do you keep the motivation to keep going? Because I think entrepreneurs, I think a lot of the time they have more failures than successes, but it's those successes that enable them to actually be successful.
Yeah. So, from my side, it's really about, um, looking forward, not blaming the past, forgiving quick and moving forward, because just, there's so many people that keep looking back and they
Mm.
never forgive. They blame partners, they blame this, they blame that. They've always got someone to blame, and if you do go through, maybe they got reason for it. But if you don't forgive and move forward, you'll actually never get to the next opportunity of success. So you do need to start moving forward. You need to put yourself in that position where there's a next opportunity of success, And all my failures and all that, I wouldn't change anything because maybe I wouldn't be here if I hadn't had those failures. And I don't even think about them. Sometimes people say, "What's your biggest failure?" I can't even remember because I don't focus on them. You got to focus on what's important, and you got to focus on moving forward. You've got to focus on the good things and so on. And that's the entrepreneurial mindset, not just if you're opening businesses, but life as general. So, and then you've got to be grateful for the stuff that has gone right. Be grateful for that. You're grateful for family, grateful for things like that. So it's all, with age, with gray hair, you learn about this. But in the beginning, it is a bit tough. You can't become a victim. You can't say, "Oh, it always keeps happening to me," because it doesn't. It just happens to everyone. It's just some people get out of it better, others stay stuck in the mud.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to going back to Portugal rugby, I've invited Tomás Appleton to be on a guest on here. So looking forward to interviewing him. Um, I think his partner's having a baby at the moment.
Yeah.
You followed Portugal rugby's development, and what do you think? What did you think the essence of their team, and you know, how do you think that rugby can actually play a role in shaping Portugal's future? I know here in our nearest sort of rugby club, which is kind of trying to do a youth grassroots thing, is in Beja, and they had from the Portugal World Cup, they had like an excitement, and it's just trying to maintain that excitement and trying to get kids to be involved
Yeah.
in rugby.
No, you
Um,
look at Thomas Appleton. He's a great example. He's not a professional. Yet he captains a team that's been at the World Cup, won a game, drew a game. He's a guy that's a dentist. So he's got to do his job. He's a guy that's maybe not the fastest runner or the most talented player, but he's definitely got the heart and the passion to lead. So again, that's very much rugby. And it hasn't been easy for him because I can imagine him as a captain. He doesn't have the flexibility of choosing his team or having the same team every weekend because some of the players that have now started to make a name for themselves are now in France and they can't come for every game. Also, they had Lazaskay, the ex-coach, which was played a pattern that was different to the pattern they're playing today.
mm.
And that pattern was working. And today's pattern, they now having to become more all-rounders. They're trying to compete in the malls and the rucks, and before they weren't. They were trying not to get into rucks and malls. So I can just imagine it must be very, very tough for him. But as a rugby guy, the courage is there to try it and to fight for it, and he leads from the front, which is amazing. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for him, and I look forward to one day having him on our Legends tour, where what he's achieved is absolutely phenomenal, and I think it's a great example for Portugal. This little country with very little resources, very little support in the ground roots of rugby. If you really
Mm.
look at it, is able to get these amazing players, these incredible wings at the moment, and this winning mentality where they do fight until the end, and that's also amazing.
It's interesting because their success came from almost approaching rugby in a slightly different way, a little bit more creative and using the advantages that they have. And I think that's similar to how Portugal could position itself in terms of its future, in terms of entrepreneurship and all of these things. We don't need to follow that same rigid pattern. We could probably rethink it and approach it in a different way.
Yeah. No, strengths. You've got to play to your strengths. People always love to look at where's our weakness. Let's work on our weakness. Let's focus on our weakness. Let's put hours and hours into our weakness. But you're never going to shine in your weaknesses. But if you do focus on your strengths and stay away from your weaknesses, if rucks are our weakness, don't get into them. Focus on our strengths, which is passing the ball, hand skills, etc. Kicking over or doing strange things and different kinds of lineouts. That's you focus on those strengths and you become good at those, and all of a sudden, you change the whole way of playing the game, and that's when it starts to work. You look at the same thing that Rusty did with the Springboks. He looked at it and he changed the whole way of rugby by deciding that he would have 50 amazing players around him, and he would use squads. He would bring in the bomb squad. They would come in and change everything again. So yeah, you got to find those skills, and when you become very comfortable and you don't adapt to change, you start to die. You look at Wales dying. In England, they haven't played to the level they should be at because they've just not adapted. They've just taken too long to adapt, and they're still playing a rugby that maybe today and even New Zealand. New Zealand have concentrated on 15 players. It's wrong. They should be concentrating on at least 23, but maybe on 50 because it's we play so much rugby now. There's more injuries. There's more. We need impact when players come on and so on.
Yeah, I mean, my father, that's something he always said, because he coached a lot of youth rugby, and what he used to focus on was not necessarily winning the games. He focused on ball handling skills from the whole team. So quite often in that sort of age group, he had a lot of young players, but he developed their skills. And rather than in old style schoolboy rugby, which I played, there would be a couple of guys that matured a little bit early. You would chuck them the ball and they would plow through everybody. So when those kids who developed all these skills, when they start to hit puberty and they start to become giants, they have also the ball skills, which is
that's another level. Yeah. No, you're right. Good, Justin.
Yes. Well, let's talk about the last little subject that I want to go through is your passion for classic cars. I did see a snippet somewhere of some cars that you have. What draws you to them, and tell us something about your favorite car.
Yeah, I think that comes from my connection with my dad. My dad's always been a car fan, and he's always been fixing cars and restoring cars, etc. And for me, once I was able to financially be in a position that I could actually own a car that I dreamt of my whole life, you buy the one and then you buy the next one. But I haven't actually bought cars for probably the last 12 years, since 2012, more or less. I also haven't sold cars, so I've just kept my collection. It's beautiful because I get to look at them, I get to drive them. So they are pieces of art, and they are old school, and I'm very much into things that are old school because I love that kind of stuff. I still love motors that smoke and make a noise. And then it's very good for me because it keeps a big bond with me and my dad. And even my son, his first car was a 1972 1602 BMW. It's orange that my dad restored, and that's what he drives around. And it's special. So I love that kind of. For me, it is art. For me, it's living art. So I'm very grateful for what I have. I'm not a collector anymore. I'm not buying anything else. But I've got a lovely little collection that it's got everything, and I'm very content with. And one day, hopefully my kids will enjoy it, or if they don't, they will have to get rid of it. It will be their problem.
Yeah.
But I think what's nice about cars, it starts conversations. It brings passion out of people. When I get visitors here and they're there and they talk to me about their first car, and when they see a car there that they remember, they're so passionate about it, and that's human. That gets blood going.
There's some beautiful roads in Portugal to drive on as well.
I love
making a nice country drive.
Portugal is probably one of the nicest countries in the world because of its weather, everything, and then you've got beautiful restaurants all over the place. You've got beaches, and you've got so much unspoiled area. You talk about the Asia and so on. It's just beautiful, So wonderful.
I feel for you because I have a similar connection. My grandfather, he used to restore the woodwork in classic cars. He was a joiner, and so I really remember as a kid, he used to take me into his workshop and into these old classic cars. For the life of me, I can't remember what they are, but he used to have a few hanging around. And I used to smell linseed oil and leather and a little bit of
amazing.
It's
still in my Beetle and in those cars. You still smell the coconut stuffing in the seats, that vinyl smell. It's awesome, man.
Amazing.
All right.
Wow. Oh, great, Tim. I think we should wrap it up there. I want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man. and I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Excellent, Justin. I really enjoyed it. Look forward to meeting you in person, maybe at one of the Lobo games, and having your son one day as one of the brave ones.
I'm sure he's going to be a brave one for sure. And keep in touch if there's anything you need to get out there or tell anybody. We're here for you. So
excellent. Thanks a lot. I'll also ask Miriam to send you my WhatsApp number so we are connected. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Justin. Keep well, and to all your listeners.
Thank you. Over and out.
Living on a roller coaster, 365 per year. Living on around in a muffin shop. I need to concentrate. Stop this train of thoughts, or I will be crashing on a couch.
If you enjoyed this episode of Podcast Portugal, please be sure to leave us a rating or a comment or a bunch of stars. It really helps the podcast gain a little bit more visibility. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and really it helps immensely to attract more super interesting guests. All guest information and show notes can be found on podcastportugal.com. On there we can also provide an episode download system. For more information on Brave Generation Academy, I will leave the links in the show notes to their website, and I'll also leave links to Tim Vieira's website, timvieira.com. Thanks once again to all the listeners, to all my guests, and in particular the Band of Four for the jingle and the music. They're doing really well at the moment, and you can go and listen to them live in Switzerland, or I'll leave a link in the show notes where you can listen to their music at home. Once again, thanks. Over and out.